Welcome back to the Crossout test server. Today we are looking at all of the changes and just briefly going to cover each of them. We're not going to go into depth with all of them because we have done that on the live stream. So if you want to go and rewatch that, you can do that. There will be a link to it up right there. Over there. Let's get right into it. First of all, cannons is the major change of this test once again, as well as drones, which I know a lot of you guys will be very excited for. Starting off with the cannons though, first of all, the prosecutor and the executioner is both being reduced to 5 energy again, which I am assuming is because a lot of people have actually complained about this. I personally think that this has to happen together with some changes to the cannons. Luckily, this is also the case. The prosecutor will be the exactly same as before. Nothing changed to that. They're changing a bit of the numbers with the new explosion mechanics. Again, we're not going to cover those new mechanics because we looked at those last week, but just saying that the prosecutor, same damage as before, everything for the prosecutor. But for the executioner though, we are actually seeing a new damage on that one. So let's just go ahead and see what it looks like now compared to the test, or to the live server, that is. 133 we are hitting now, where on the live server we actually hit it for 172. So quite the damage difference there on the executioner, which is fine. If you are going to run 3, then the alpha damage definitely, in my opinion, has to go down. So that is looking fine. Then we have the Tsunami and the Typhoon as well. The Tsunami now has its perk changed a little bit again compared to last time. This time we are looking at 6 stacks of 5% damage every every other second, instead of the 4 stacks that we had before. And if you don't know by now, then the current perk is a much longer charging time, but also for a higher trade-off in extra damage. So 186 damage on that hit compared to the 212 that the Tsunami dealt before. So also a tiny damage nerf on the Tsunami compared to what it has on the live server. But you will also be able to compensate with that more frequently with the perk that does not take as long to charge anymore. This is quite depending on whether you're playing a hover or you're playing a spider now. So that is definitely something that you will have to consider, that maybe spiders with cannons are going to be more valuable for the simple fact that the Tsunami change, or the Tsunami perk, is actually coming into play just a tiny bit more now. But let's see, 242 if we fully charge it. So that is 2 damage more than a Typhoon shot. So a tiny bit more damage if you fully charge it, but you will also have to sit around and wait for a total of 12 seconds. So that is quite the time between shots. And lastly, we have the Typhoon, which has not really received any changes to the damage either. So we're not going to go ahead and compare the damage on those two. But nevertheless, we are going to talk about the perk, because the perk is getting a change once again. We can actually not see it in game here right now, but we will just read it out for you. A Typhoon hit increases the reload time for enemy weapons by 29%, and weapons with mechanics of overheating cooldown 29% slower. The effect lasts 3 seconds and does not stack. This means that now you will not only increase weapon reloading time for cannons and likewise weapons that has some sort of a reloading time, you will also increase it for any weapon that has heating mechanics. So for example, shotguns, machine guns, miniguns, fire weapons as well. So this is going to be a hit still for example, fire dogs, which a lot of people play. They will have a slower heating or cooldown time on their weapons. So maybe you will also have to combine when you're actually shoot. If you can see someone still shooting fire at you, maybe you want to stall it for just half a second to hit their cooling down for as much effect as possible. Besides that, we're also going to see, for example, Fafnirs, cannons like this, the Locust, the Cricket, all of those are going to be hit by the reloading as well, the reloading debuff. They would also do that before, it's just saying. Besides that, Helios, for example, is not going to get hit. The Trigger is going to get hit, Blockchain is going to get hit, all of these weapons. Something like the Assembler will not be hit either, because it doesn't have any reload. The only thing it has is it has charging time. The Helios has charging time as well. Assembler has charging time. So those weapons will not be hit by it because of the fact that they won't feel it, that it doesn't affect the charging time, so to say. So you will not be affected by it with the Typhoon. Having said that though, one more thing about the entire new explosive system, and I think this is valuable for a lot of people to know. We're not going to break down this entire explosive system very much, but it is just worth noting that it seems like the best way, and we're this is still half conspiracy, but it seems like for now that the best way of stacking up your armor will simply be with heavy parts in front and weaker parts behind it. So the heavy parts to soak up that initial bullet damage, which will prevent the shot from going far into your build and explode and deal a lot of damage. Because as you can see here, we took off 1 APC panel and two of these fryers. But if we turn this around, we take this fryer and move it up here, we take the APC panel and put it back, and we do like this instead, and we go out and shoot the Typhoon again. Then the scenario is quite different here, because we went through a total of 5 layers here. So the furthest layer that we dealt damage and took something away was 5 layers. But if we shoot this, then you'll see that we only have 2 fryers left, which means that we have gone through a total of 1, 3, 5, 7 layers. So having the APC panel in the front will make sure that you soak up less damage inside of those vital parts of your build. It's a nice thing to know. Again, there is much more to the explosion mechanics, and I want to see the live service before we conspire too much on it and we go too much into depth about what this actually means for us. This is what we can say about it right now. Besides, we have blockchain, trigger, Grenadier, and Annihilator changes, and we're just going to cover those briefly as well. First of all, the blockchain has had its maximum spread reduced and the maximum in both motion and while sitting still, and its damage increased by 10%. A minor buff here to the blockchain. Still do not think it's going to be viable. I think the damage has gone from 42 to 48, so I would not assume that the weapon will be much stronger than it is already, because it's not a super viable weapon. The trigger kind of just, you know, took that lead when it came to those 2 weapons. They were getting compared a lot in the beginning, but it seems like the trigger kind of won it here, which is fine in my opinion. We can see 46 damage now, which I believe it was 42 before. So it's nothing crucial for the weapon. It was the perk that made the weapon good during the test service, and they did something about this. It's a weapon like anything else right now, but I definitely think 10% it will help out some, especially for the people who already like playing with it. It's going to be more viable, but I would still say that the trigger weapon is quite strong. So the way that this weapon has been nerfed is that they have made it more of a close contact weapon. The weapon before had a max range of 150 meters and a optimum range of 110 meters, I believe it was. This has all been changed to be, let's just see what happens here, 80 meters. So you have to have a maximum range in this weapon now of 80 meters. So that counts for both the maximum range as well as the optimum range. This does not differ by any means, so you will deal the same amount of damage no matter where you are. That was great driving, but we get the idea of it nevertheless. So not a lot of changes to the trigger on the damage, which is very high on the weapon already, but they did increase the reloading time of it as well from 2 to 3 seconds. So it will hit the overall DPM of the weapon, or DPS if you want to count with that instead. So still some changes to the weapons, but not directly hitting the damage numbers that you see from it. But it is definitely something that will force you to go closer with the weapon, especially for all of the people playing it on hovers, which could sit back and snipe off weapons with very good precision. They will be forced to go just a tiny bit closer. And then what you guys have been waiting for the most, probably. Let's just see here. Search for a couple of Grenadiers. Now the Grenadier is a drone that everyone loves to hate. To some extent I understand it, to some extent I don't understand it, but the way that they want to change the Grenadiers here is spread increased by 33%, so the shots will spread out more than they did before. Projectile blast radius reduced by 20%, so less AoE as they hit, and then drone durability reduced by 17%. So the drones have less HP, they will now have a bigger spread while they shoot, and finally they will also be hitting for less of an AoE when they shoot. Judging by the amount of hits that they land on an average shot though, I would still tend to say that they hit 9 out of 10 shots. They're very precise. So those 33%, I think it's more interesting to hear what those 33% have been increased from. So like if they increase it from 10% and they add 33% on top of it, then we get 3% extra. What does that matter? So it would be nice to see what they actually increased from, because if you're moving it around with an impulse, I don't even have an impulse that I can show you, but the impulse has quite the spread if you're not sitting still while you shoot. So I definitely think that they should maybe consider albing this just a tiny bit more. And then finally, the Annihilator. The most infuriating weapon I think that we have had in Crossout in a long time. The idea behind this weapon is a support weapon, it seems like, because it slows people down and you can assign it from far distances. And you know, despite this, the damage is just so high on this weapon, and it is almost impossible to hit. It is so hard to shoot these out of the sky. Like, you wouldn't even imagine if you haven't played against them. Itchy ear there. But you wouldn't even imagine if you haven't played against them. They're very strong. They're really, really strong. What they have gone ahead here and done is the drone changes its position every other second. So 2 seconds in between it, switching positions. As you can see, once it starts hovering over a target, it will sort of strafe around every once in a while, making it harder to hit. Now it's 2 seconds, before it was 1.5 seconds, so they will sit still just for a tiny bit longer. And then the damage has been reduced by 8%. This takes the damage of each drone's lightning strike from 13 to 12. A mild damage buff at most. What I think they should have done is simply lower the HP and fix the hitbox. When the drone is such a small target, they can make it bigger as well. They just make the entire physical model of the drone bigger. That would help out with a lot of the issues as well. But the matter of fact is just that the drone is almost impossible to shoot out of the sky at the moment. You have to aim so precise, and you have to hit it straight on it like multiple times. I think it has 120 HP, so it's 3-4 strikes with an aspect. And considering that you maybe miss like 70% of your shots on it because it moves around so much and the target is so small, meaning that you have to shoot so many times with an aspect or a Punisher in order to just shoot it out of the sky. So the main counter right now seems to be pretty much just a spark, and I find that to be a bit wrong. Nevertheless, that is pretty much all of the changes that we have seen on the test server for now. I hope you can put this to good use. Just a nice little recap of all of the changes coming. Do let me know what you think about all of these changes. Don't forget to keep it constructive, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.